us tonight are Josh Shulman and Jim Healy, and also assisting them is Tim Schwenke, which is in the back. So without, and of course our Planning Commission and Village Board are here. The process will start with the Village Board opening the meeting, and then the Plan Commission Chair will open the Plan Commission meeting. We'll close that way as well. And so under agenda item number 1, I call this meeting to order. We have a roll call. All of the village trustees are here, so we do have a quorum. In item number 2 is verification of compliance with the open meeting law, and we are in compliance with that. And I'm calling item number 2A for those of you that have the agenda. I'd like us all to stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we go on to item number 3, which is public comment, and further explanation by staff, we're going to turn the microphone over to Jim Otto, our Plan Commission Chair, to give him the opportunity to begin the Plan Commission.
We'll call the Plan Commission meeting to order. We do have a quorum of the Plan Commission, and the Plan Commission also is in compliance with the open meetings verification. Thank you.
Do you want this microphone or?
All right, thank you. Welcome everybody to the 10-year comprehensive plan review. I hope all of you either saw via our newsletter, social media, or the invitation that we sent to every home in the village of Richfield that we're having the meeting tonight. We're pleased to have you all with us. My name is Josh Shulman. I am the village administrator here in the village of Richfield, and I've been here since about 2010, early in 2010. My assistant to the administrator, Jim Healy, is here, and he will be going through and giving a little presentation that you see on the PowerPoint about the community build-out analysis here shortly. The Smart Growth Plan, and the reason we're here tonight, some of you sitting here were likely a part of the 2004 Visioning Comprehensive Plan, Smart Growth Plan study that the village did as a town at that time, part of the process for us to plan the future of Richfield and one of the requirements for us to eventually become the village that we are today. That process was really kind of groundbreaking and foundational in the development and maturation process of becoming a village. It really set the stage for what the village plans to be, what the community wants to be, and we have a really good foundation with the future land use map that we have today, as well as the document that goes along to it. So what's the difference between what happened 10 years ago and today? To cut to the quick, it's really pretty simple. When we talked to the board and to the community in general through our strategic plan, some surveys we did, basically what we've heard is that the vast majority of the village of Richfield is exactly what people want to see. Don't change anything. Very minimalistic types of things that people are looking for in terms of modifications and changes to the way things are. And so in preparation for this discussion and the statutory requirement to review the plan every 10 years, we talked to the Plan Commission and board about what exactly it was we wanted to look at. First of all, part of this process is designed to make the original document that we had in 2004 more readable and user-friendly. And as we get to the end of this process, towards the end of the year, hopefully we'll accomplish that goal. And the second piece of it was to really focus in on the only area that most of the people that we talked to had indicated there was any trepidation or concern or interest in taking a look at one more time. And that is the maps that you have in front of you, which we call the Highway 175 US 41 corridor, just for general ease of discussion points. This is the area that currently is essentially to the north of, starting near Piggly Wiggly, practically speaking, moving your way to the north along Highway 175 and ending at the edge of the village of Richfield, which is Pioneer Road. Okay? Everything from adjacent to and maybe even slightly over 175 to the west, and all of that all the way over to the east. US Highway 41 essentially is the eastern border, with really one or two exceptions. So this discussion is really focused and narrowed down to that corridor. Everything south and west of there, in essence, is really not something that the board and the Plan Commission, as well as what we heard in our surveying, something that people are interested in talking about. And so we're trying to keep the conversation tonight focused. To do that, to help us in a little bit of a guided discussion, one of the things that the board assigned early on in this process, and this process goes back already a couple of years, the board asked us to do a study and to ultimately work with a third-party consultant that we hadn't worked with in our normal planning processes before, to help us give as objective as possible an analysis of the different land use scenarios and what they might mean, especially in terms of fiscal impact for you and your taxes ultimately. Smart growth planning really has kind of two prongs and reasons as to why you do it. One is that fiscal analysis and trying to help you develop your community in a way that is sustainable financially and will help maintain your property tax rates at the position that you choose them to be at. And the other piece is to maintain a culture and or land use that you want to see. Maintaining that country way of life per se, and defining exactly what that means. And so that's what we're going to try to do tonight, especially and particularly focused on the corridor of 175 and US 41. In front of you, and some of you I see flipping through it already, what we ended up coming up with was 3 different alternatives. Those alternatives are, one of them is really the plan as it was adopted, developed and adopted through the 2004 process, and as it exists essentially today. The first alternative does almost no changes. As a matter of fact, as I think about it, I don't think it does any changes if that was the option the community decided to go with. A second alternative is more of a residential base. Currently, if you look at the existing map, there are more high density, what I would consider more suburban living along the interstate. One more similar development to what we're seeing currently with Reflections Village subdivision. That on the current map is planned for just north of Highway 167 or Holy Hill Road behind the truck stop. The alternative with residential would modify that to some degree and make it somewhat more consistent with what we have throughout the rest of the village, trying to accomplish more of the cluster type development, 3-acre density, 1.5 lots with 1.5 reserve roughly. And then the third option, in short, is more of a business residential mix. Slight more emphasis on business. We do have, again, if you look back at the existing plan, there is some business development planned specifically along the US 41, which soon will be the Interstate 41 corridor itself. The rest of it is primarily residential. This plan would modify that to some degree and try to create some buffers in between existing residential properties, but allow for a more traditional type of a frontage road development. So those are really the 3 options that we're talking about tonight. Jim Healy will get into the details a little bit more of what those options mean. To have this discussion with 150 people-ish, we've got a few things that I just want to go over and try to help us get to a point where we can have some takeaways. The discussion tonight is designed to be a table-by-table discussion. We want you to get to know your neighbors and friends here and have a real discussion amongst yourselves about what it is that we're hoping, what your hopes and dreams are for this village, okay, moving forward. And following the presentation here and a few other small things, we're going to ask you to be a part of that. To do that, on everybody's table, there should be a sheet with blanks on it, 1 through 10, and it's called Sandbox Rules. If you would please take, and everybody at the table, please take a look and read through that. It's really basic rules on having discussion and being adults about it. If everyone would please read through that and sign your name to it. As a contract amongst yourselves on the table, we're not going to keep it for attendance or anything of that variety. It's more or less just an agreement amongst yourselves to be respectful and have good discussion. Finally, before we get into while you're doing that and before we get into the community build-out analysis presentation, to give us just a few minutes to dot some I's and cross some T's, if we could do a little bit of an icebreaker and introduce yourself to the other members at your table. And for an icebreaker, considering we're all from different heritages and backgrounds, talk a little bit about where you're from and maybe what your heritage is and things like that. Or if you have some other fun discussion to talk about, please do. We'll give you about 5 minutes.
Okay, no fighting, guys.
Alright, everybody, hope you guys all had some good discussions and got to meet some new friends and neighbors.
She was paying 3 times that amount because they didn't have the hospital, they didn't have.
As Josh said before, my name is Jim Healy. I'm the assistant to the administrator and planning and zoning administrator here in Richfield. I've been here for about 3 years now. Tim Schwecke from Civitech Consulting will be manning the PowerPoint presentation tonight, but really the purpose of it, and this plan is all online for you guys to see, and it has been for quite some time now, but the purpose is just to have a very high level discussion so that tonight, when we're talking about land uses, you guys have a baseline for what we're trying to do. So we did this community build-out analysis or this corridor plan, but really there's tons of different types of plans that you can have. There's statewide planning, there's regional planning like Sewer Pack does, there's community planning, there's corridor planning, as we're going to talk about, and then there's individual planning parcel by parcel. So this is what we anticipated as being an appendix to our comprehensive plan, which we're currently working on right now. The comp plan is basically broken up into 2 parts. It's the what is part, which are the things about census data, job trends, how long people commute to work, median household incomes, basically things that you would find in the U.S. Census report. And then there's the what will be, which is the second half of the plan, which is really the most important part, and which is why you all are here tonight. So if I could just, before I quick started, by a show of hands, how many of you here tonight found out about this by the newsletter? Okay. On our website, anybody go to our website and found out about this? Or we have a section of our website which is devoted to the comprehensive plan. If you go to the planning department, there's a separate bump out for the comprehensive plan. That has the draft chapters that we're currently working on right now. And that'll be your source and your place of information to get the most up-to-date information, as well as going and following along with our agendas and packets and whatnot. So thank you all for coming. Without further ado, I'll talk about the community build-out analysis. We contracted with Trilogy Consulting, who partnered with Crispell Schneider to do the mapping work. Crispell Schneider is our contracted engineer. If you want to flip to the first slide. So really the purpose of this event, thanks, yeah. I'm on a short tether here tonight, so I'll be working off of this. How development patterns are going to impact the village budget and tax rates over time. as you guys probably know, different types of land uses require different levels of service by staff and administratively. We only have currently right now about a dozen staff members. In our administrative office, we have 6. So really, if you think about it, we have 36 square miles of village and approximately 24,000 acres that we help manage along with the village board and the plan commission and all of our other boards and commissions. So as Josh alluded to earlier, this discussion was really going to be a targeted discussion of this northeast corridor, as we're calling it, because we understand that for the vast majority of our comprehensive plan, whether it be the 10-year plan or the 20-year plan, which is just a way that we stage development, that a lot of it isn't going to change. If you guys look at your maps that you have in your packet, all this yellow is residential. You know, all that gray part is agricultural, rural residential. For the vast majority of these parcels, that's going to stay the same. The dark green part is the environmental corridor. That's going to be updated a bit just based on new data that we've received from Sewer Pack that we'll have and we'll incorporate into our zoning for how we monitor development. So, specifically, what are the impacts of more residential versus non-residential development? As we went through this process, we wanted to have 2 diametrically opposed mapping scenarios. We have the middle, which is our 20-year future land use plan, which was adopted with the help of the community in 2004. And then we also have the residential scenario, which hopefully you guys have all had a chance to look at in your packet of maps. We'll bring it up on the big thing here in a second so you guys can see it. And then the non-residential scenario. Now that's not to say in the residential scenario, that's only residential. If you guys will look at the legend, you'll see there's actually quite a bit of business mixed use, light industrial offices, low density housing, but we also have some higher density housing, which, like Josh said, would be akin to Reflections Village development. So this was a 3-part study focusing on these 3 scenarios. And then we worked with these consultants and they did interviews and we gave them copies of our budget. They analyzed our budget and figured out how much of what we're collecting goes to development or how much of it goes to residential development. And then what are the projected costs and revenues under these various build-out analysis. Richfield is really unique. I know you guys probably have heard this drumbeat a lot of times, but geographically speaking, there's not a lot of communities that are like us, and there's not a lot of communities that have done this type of a financial analysis. We look to Oak Creek and Franklin for their 27th Street corridor plan, and Caledonia as the closest comparables that we could find to being basically a rubric for our development of this plan. So this is our adopted future land use plan. In your map tonight, we built it out, or we blew up just the northeast corridor so you guys could see the area that we're specifically talking about. Otherwise, if we gave this to you on an 8.5 by 11, you wouldn't be able to tell, orange from red or blue from purple. So this is our future land use plan. Tim, if you could just go back to that really quick. The future land use plan is meant to be a living and breathing document. Since 2004, we've had a handful of map amendments that's done by petitioning the village board and plan commission, holding a public hearing, publishing public notice. So that's not to say, the map that we adopted in 2004 is exactly the same as the map you see here tonight, because it's not. We've had some changes, and we fully anticipate over the next 10 years that we'll probably have some more changes. So that's just something to keep in mind as we go through this. So the alternate land use scenarios, if, Tim, if you could click on this hyperlink. Oh, actually, excuse me for a second. So when we were working with the consultants, we came up with these 10 areas, which are labeled 1 through 10 on your guys' maps that you have. The village is made up of 24,000 acres. Currently, we probably have somewhere between 5,700 and 5,800 acres that we could develop. And out of that 5,800, we're talking about 1,000 acres, give or take. That's 4% of the village's land use. That really is the heart of what we're talking about tonight. And that's these areas that are highlighted in color. And on your maps here, the parcels, the big 2-foot by 3-foot maps, the ones that are not grayed out are the parcels that we're talking about tonight. So, in addition to that, underneath that map, we have aerial shots. This is taken from Washington County GIS. Anybody can go on to this website and use a Google Earth type tool to look and measure distances and get information about how much your neighbor pays in taxes and all that kind of good stuff. So we printed this off so you guys could see what's out there currently. As you'll see, it's for the most part, it's a canvas that we're looking to the community to help us paint and make decisions on. So, Tim, if you could just go back to the PowerPoint, next slide. Okay, so this is Okay. So, informing a community-wide discussion about the future development of Richfield. Tim, did you skip over the residential scenarios? Okay. All right. Keep going. Other direction. Okay. So this is just so you guys can see about the acres that we have and that we have available. We figured out, what approximately that would be as far as if we were to put roads in there. So that's why it's not really an exact science to the 1,000 acres that we're talking about. And then there are some exceptions that are noted in the study that are currently developed, like Loggers Park, for example, is one of them. But there's a parcel just east to there that is lumped in with this land use category. So this is our residential scenario. You'll see the red checked is light industrial up on Mayfield Road. We have higher density in the orange. Yellow is low density residential. The pink is commercial. And I think that hit it all. And orange is multifamily, 2-family. We currently have one subdivision in the village that's zoned RD2 2-family district, and that's Fairway Field subdivision, just right up the street next to the golf course. So that's the area that we're talking about here. All right, non-residential scenario. As you can see, there's some marked differences here. Namely, the light industrial has been replaced with commercial. This commercial office, mixed use is the purple land use. Specifically for 6, it was rural residential before. And we've extended the 2-family south of Fairway Fields down across Hubertus Road. So, just as Josh was kind of talking about before, one land use element isn't going to dominate this plan. In some situations, like near Endeavor Business Park, and where we already have an existing subdivision, we'll have to look at a blended approach for how we provide basically a buffer to protect the people who are east of 175 as well, and how we can kind of marry these different land uses together to make one good cohesive plan. All right, so this plan works on a few major assumptions. The costs and revenues that we looked at are in today's dollars. Certainly we could have had a market feasibility analysis done as a part of this. And by that, I just mean where would a site for, commercial or office industrial likely be? That wasn't the focus of this. Our intention was to be able to paint broad land use categories across the village so that we could just say, generally speaking, we think that this scenario in this instance in this area is a good idea. And then we'll take that as staff and we'll take the information that you give us tonight and feed it back to the Planning Commission and the village board and say, here's what we're discussing. It's either the 20-year future land use map, the residential build-out, or the non-residential build-out. And now if you're looking at these plans and you say, well, I really like the non-residential build-out, but I don't like the way that you treat parcel, 2 or the number that's identified on there, then you guys can submit to us, a written comment on this 2x3 map, and we'll collect them all at the end of the night so that we can get a better understanding on what your views are, because really that's what's important to us, and that's why we are working so hard to try to get community involvement for this. So what can we conclude based on the steps that we did? We found that property taxes from new residential development will minimally generate the revenues in excess of whatever expenditures we have over the short term. So, the way our community is built out now is you could say it's 90% residential, 10% business, give or take 5 or 10, whatever percent. And in the short term, that works. It will have a positive effect on your tax rate over time. If we were to go with non-residential development, we see that it's able to subsidize more of the residential housing, generally speaking, west of 175. That's not to say, though, that when we were doing this, we didn't take a few things into consideration. We know that there are, well, okay, Tim lost it. Thanks, Tim. He's fired. He's fired. We assume that we would be at the same level of staffing now as we will be 10, 15, and 20 years from now. Is that going to happen? We don't know. Right now, we all wear a lot of different hats in the workplace, and we all do a lot of people's different jobs. We're working to create efficiencies at a staff level, but how long is that sustainable, and how long before people start to individually burn out or leave? We didn't take into consideration, what new demand these residential developments might have. Obviously, the village is going through a park planning process right now that we're kind of on the tail end of wrapping up. But as population increases, if you look at National Park and Recreation Standards, which is what the Park Commission has chosen to adopt, they say that you need to have, a certain ratio of park land to residential acreage, or residential population, excuse me. So as population grows up, there will probably be a need for increased parkland. But, if we look out to 2025, which is what the Department of Administration numbers that we went out to, in 2025, we're looking at a population of 11,900. Right now we're more than fine for park space, but you need to keep continually looking towards the future for what we're going to need next and laying the groundwork with things like a capital improvement plan and things like having a reserve fund. So these are things that we're looking for. We didn't talk about, would we need to expand Village Hall? Would we need to do anything related to our own fire company or a municipal fire department? These are omissions in the plan which we certainly acknowledge as holes, but from the conclusion of the plan, we feel as though we have a good baseline, and that's the baseline that we're going to start with tonight. So if you guys wouldn't mind, what I'd like to do now is get into the actual land use planning exercise. So if I could just give you guys all about 5 to 10 minutes to discuss individually at your tables the different types of land use scenarios that you have for maps tonight, and ask you guys to, as a table, and if this is unimpossible, we'll find out very quickly, come to a general consensus as to which of the 3 maps your table would vote for. And if there are lone dissenters who are obstinate and who have their own idea of what should be, then you have a blank map in your packet, and please feel free to make marks or comments on there. And if anybody has any questions, Josh, Tim, and myself will be walking around. 20 minutes. 20 minutes. All right, everybody, what we're going to do now, thank you. Yes?
Should we put, no.
Okay.
Can you repeat that again?
Okay. The next part of the meeting is we're going to do public comment. So if you guys have a public comment.
Wait, we have to hear what he said. Yeah, we didn't hear. Give him the mic. Have a mic.
Oh, here, right.
We don't have a mic.
This is the mic.
Okay. You gave us only a couple of different situations. We at table number 2, and I know there are other people here that are in opposition to the plans that you have here. Perhaps we need to take a vote or have another vote and see how these other people feel that don't want industrial, or they don't want to change it, or they want to leave it the way it is. You're asking only a few questions. We need to ask all of them.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. That's really good input. During the workshop, when we did the presentation, we had a workshop where we had these land uses mapped out. That was an opportunity for the residents in the community to come and talk about the land uses and work with the village board to develop these consensus maps that we have. You know, like we've been talking about from the beginning, we're not trying to recreate the wheel here. You know, the land use map that we adopted in 2004 and what we've been doing for the last 30 years is working, is it not?
Yes.
Okay. Well, some would say not, but I would think that the overwhelming majority of the community would say yes. If they weren't, I would think that they would be here tonight screaming and pounding their fists. So, you know, tonight I certainly understand where Fred is coming from. These are the adopted plans. This was the adopted plan that the Plan Commission and the Village Board came to. These are the 3 land use scenarios that we're talking about, but we are talking about making minor modifications to it, and that's the purpose of the meeting tonight. So.
But you haven't given the other people the vote. You're just giving them a couple options and saying, here, take it or leave it.
What vote?
You just voted on minor modifications.
Okay. Well, we're going to go on to public comment. So if anybody has a public comment, we will be, there's handwritten ones on your table in blue. That's for time if it exceeds 30 minutes, but I'm willing to entertain that we'll probably be willing to go longer if the president and the chairman of the Plan Commission, if there's enough demand for it and enough people wanting to speak. On the agenda, it says 3 minutes, but we're willing to go 3 to 5 minutes or however long you want to talk within reason. So if the first person who wants to talk can stand up, announce your name very clearly, because Tim, our consultant, will be writing down your name and your address so that we can have it for the minutes that will be approved at the next Plan Commission meeting in December. So that being said, first public comment. Bill Myers looks like he's itching to stand up. You can just stand there, Bill.
He needs a microphone.
Thank you. My name is Bill Myers. I live at 4655 Sun Sierra Drive in Hubertus. We're right near Little Freeze Lake. Our table unanimously voted for map number 9. the existing land use. There were several reasons that we brought up. The assumptions that have been made, we think, could be improved. And the first, and probably the most important to us, is preserving our country way of life. And we're fortunate to have a couple folks sitting next to us, the Schmidts, who own a chicken farm. And I'd like to preserve their farm in our village. We did point out that if we do business development, how are we going to attract them? Most likely it's a TIF district, which means we're not going to get a lot of money out of it. And Dr. Kirchauer pointed out that we do have a lot of considerations with water here in the village that I don't think we've really looked at here. The only other thing everybody noted is that we had decided to do a walkable hamlet using a concept called new urbanism, where folks were going to walk instead of drive. And I don't mean to be critical, but I think we classify that as close to a failure. Thank you.
All right, the next public comment, is there anybody? Brett, come on up.
As you probably know, I'm opposed to this, but we also have to start thinking about this thing. They say, oh, and it's not going to be a TIF if we put this industrial in. That's fine. Okay, but let's look at the more practical side of multifamily housing, high-density housing. Do you want to pay for that? I don't. If you take a look at all of this business, so-called business, hey, we can't even keep a hardware store in town. We can't keep a hardware store in town. How are we going to keep all this business? And then let's take a look at all of these businesses that are going to come in. They have to be sprinkled. Okay? If you have to sprinkle it, got news for you. Where's the water going to come from? Probably from the Milwaukee Metro Sewerage District. Who's going to pay for that? You people are going to pay for it whether you like it or not. I think we really need to go back and reconsider the whole plan.
Thanks for your comments, Fred. Next person, Mike Watson, looks like he's walking up to the front.
Chopping at the bit.
All right.
Mike Watson, 4900 South Lake Road, Colgate, Wisconsin. I'm a little wound up, so I'll apologize out of the gate. First of all, I want to compliment the village on putting this together tonight and all the material that they sent out to everybody and the incredible amount of work they did to give us all a chance to participate in this process. I really applaud them for that. On the flip side, though, while I appreciate that, there's some things that I don't appreciate. And I've never had the pleasure of meeting Fred before, but boy, I'm sure tail his thinking 100%. You give me the option of A or B, where's none of the above? And so as I stand here tonight, and I think about all of the things that I've learned and heard from you over the last few years that I've been kind of active in all of this stuff, what I hear is you want it left just like it is. You don't want more development. You're not going to be able to avoid it. It's coming, so you need to plan for it. I acknowledge that, but you certainly don't want more commercial development. You certainly don't want sewer, and you don't want all of the things that are going to shirt-tail all of these things. You've said that loud and clear, and I and some others are trying to help you get that. But I'd like to point out one additional thing here, and this is from the build-out analysis that was referred to tonight. And this is right out of the document off the Village of Richfield's website. The residential revenue is $3,026,000, and the residential expense is $2.95 million. So the village gets more revenue from residential than it has in expense. That's a good thing. The non-residential, however, is $270,000 in revenue and $285,000 in expense. So the non-residential costs us more, and it's verbally described that way in the build-out analysis as well. So when I look at our community and I think about what do I want, I pretty much want it to stay just like it is. I don't want to see new development. I don't want to see new commercial. I'm not interested in seeing Microsoft or Kohl's or Harley Davidson or anyone else move in here. Because when they come in here, all of the things that come with that will become our burden. And I don't want it. I'd like it just to stay like it is. I love Richfield, and I want to see it stay like it is. Thanks.
Sharon and Robeck.
That's okay. We've got the hall all night.
This isn't even related to what the previous speakers were talking about. I got concerned because there's no place on there for those of us that might decide we want to live in a condo because we're tired of the snow and the grass cutting and so on. We have a daughter that may want to buy our place, but everything is south of here that we've looked at except for one thing, north. And we're just doing the wool gathering now. But Josh said that there wasn't a feel in Richfield for condos. And I thought, how can you not have a feel for owner-occupied things as opposed to anything that either is small square footage that is catering to young couples, which is fine. But, you know, is everybody leaving Richfield after a certain point when you get tired of the snow and everything else? I was just surprised. And of the walking hamlet, after working on that little roundabout thing, I was curious, what do people consider downtown Richfield? And I got a whole bunch of different answers. And I'd like to see the part north develop to be more of a quaint-like thing, where you'd have maybe condos. People could walk and support the businesses there. And maybe a little bit south of the roundabout, then you'd have the larger condos. Again, they'd be supporting the businesses right there. So this was an entirely different issue.
Thank you, Sharon. Next, if somebody has a public comment. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Bill Schneider, and I'm basically very new here. We moved in about 2 years ago, and the only thing I'd like to say, or maybe two things, is I moved here because I like the way it is, and I don't want to see a change. The second thing is, I kept hearing a lot of verbiage, but nothing gave me any sense as to the benefits of improving with more, what I saw, a lot more industry. I can only see negatives, and I never heard any positive comments. So, it's my only comment.
All right, anybody else? Mr. Frank, watch out.
Thank you, Gil Frank, Colgate. Okay, I've been here for 35 years already.
What is your address?
Oh, 4156 Elmwood Road. It's all over the web. I bring it up. You should know it by heart. Every public records request that goes out to everybody in the village, everybody knows where I am. Since the 1960s, Richfield has a history of being a farm orientated. With residential subdivisions, it has moved slowly due to our high county property taxes and other factors. Washington County property taxes are about a third more than Waukesha County. And in addition to that, we get another 0.5% extra in sales tax. Washington County collects from purchases made here. This may be the biggest contributing factor while many retail businesses fail or do not stay in Richfield. With a county high tax structure, we should remain a semi-rural community located between two urban areas. Everything else has been covered. A corporation such as Microsoft coming into Richfield is remote. Richfield would have a better chance of getting a ski hill built by United Waste before Microsoft would move into its headquarters here. Thank you.
Thanks, Gil. Appreciate the joke. All right. Is there any more? Anybody else? Mr. Wire?
Our Boyer 4054 Maple Grove Drive. Comment that lady that was just up here that's looking for some places to live in Richfield. You got the right idea for condos or side by sides. This is the perfect spot along 175. How many people here would like to live along Highway 41 corridor? Residential. Raise your hand. I don't see a one. Commercial brings tax dollars into the community. It was mentioned there was only 270,000 or something taxes brought in off of commercial, what's in the village. There are no services that the village gives these shopping centers. There is no snow plowing. There is no grass cutting. We pay our own street lights on Highway 175, the electricity. There is no burden on our village at all. No garbage pickup. And you people say commercial, you've got to have commercial. What do you think? Look at any community around. They all have commercial and industrial, and that helps their tax basis. You talk about a TIF district, you don't have to give them a TIF district, you don't want to. They don't want to pay their own. Tell them to go some other place. If you're worried about that, you don't have to. You don't have to do nothing. So you better think about this. Long Highway 41 corridor should be commercial if you want your tax base to help you out for the rest of your life. Thank you.
Okay, yes, sir. Come on up.
My name is Greg Kuznarich. I live at 524 Melody Lane, Colgate. Little different perspective. Growing up, I lived in Oak Creek. My family moved there in the 60s, late 60s. Pretty close to Richfield as it stands now at that time. My parents built a home. We had well and septic. Probably middle 80s, they came through with sewer and water. My parents were concerned. We had had some issues with our land earlier, and so we kind of stayed in contact with what was going on in our city. 1989, after several years of sewer and water, we had some increases in property taxes. When we went to the city to ask them, how long is this going to continue? The assurance we received was that, don't worry, now that we have sewer and water, we're going to have development. That development will keep your taxes low. So in 1989, my mom and dad paid $4,220 for their property. So in 2012, they enjoyed a bill of $7,220, same lot, same house they built in 1969. My perspective, there's no pot of gold at the end of that development rainbow. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Oh, Dr. Chirkauer. Our hydrologist, Dr. Chirkauer. Yeah.
The last speaker mentioned sewer and water, and I'm kind of the person that monitors groundwater resources throughout the village. Our water supply is in wonderful shape, but that's predicated on the assumption, and it will continue to be in wonderful shape, if we maintain our current style of development. As long as we are low-density residential, our groundwater system can supply our whole population with private wells, private on-site wastewater treatment systems. If we start going to denser developments, such as the Reflections Village, then we have to be very cautious about how they're developed and where they're going to get their water from. And I have to compliment the village government we have in effect a groundwater protection ordinance, which allows us to work with developers to get them to modify their development so that they don't overutilize the water supply. The big caution, and this is not news to those of you on the board or commission, the big caution I have is that the location in the village with the weakest or least productive water supply system is the northeast corridor. So I understand the desire to put commercial development there because of the transportation, but we would have to be very, very cautious in any development that it was not a heavy water demanding commercial or industrial development. So that's the water perspective. Personal perspective, my table unanimously decided we'd like to keep things the way they are.
Anybody else would like the opportunity to speak? Mr. Gagnon?
I'm Jeff Gagnon. I represent the Highway J Citizens Group, and I have, for the last 14 years, our group has, we have more members in the village of Richfield than any other community in the area. We have members not only in Richfield, but in the town of Erin, the town of Polk, town of Lisbon, and the surrounding communities, but we have more members in Richfield than we have in any of the other surrounding communities. I've talked to the residents in the neighboring communities, and you go to the town of Polk, their tax rate is 57 cents per thousand. It's 1/3 of Richfield's. What does the town of Polk do differently than the village of Richfield? They require 5-acre lots, 5-acre minimum build size. Go to the town of Erin, their property taxes are less than the village of Richfield's. They require 5-acre minimum lot sizes. And so the key to keeping your taxes low is low density development, lower than what it is right now. Future development should be on 5-acre lots. It also reduces the traffic through your community, reduces the amount of services. And if you want to talk about services, go to the Town of Dunn's website. The Town of Dunn is a community just outside of Madison, and they have extensive studies on there that you can download that have been done over the years that show that when you develop, it's a money loser. You're spending more for services than you are getting back and returning revenue, and that's been proven out by study after study after study. And so what we need in the village of Richfield is the citizens should decide what development goes in. And the greatest fear we have is municipal sewer and water. The way to take that fear out of the village of Richfield is to give the citizens the right to vote and decide everywhere in the village of Richfield by referendum whether sewer and water comes in here, and that will control the development that comes in here. Right now, citizens don't have that right along the 175 corridor. The village board makes that decision. They have no, citizens do not have referendum rights, so let's modify our ordinances and give the citizens the right to vote and decide on municipal sewer and water before it comes in anywhere in the village of Richfield. I'm sure 99% of the people who live here don't want sewer and water to come in, and we must demand that any business or any development that comes in here, we make absolutely sure that it is 100% sustainable on a private well and a private septic. If there's any slight risk that there's a problem, that business should not be allowed in here. They should be self-sustaining on a private well and a private septic. If it can't, then it should not be allowed. Thank you. My address is 2668 Highway 164. It's Slinger, Wisconsin 53086.
Okay, anybody else? Going once? Going twice? Mr. Tabor?
Yeah, my name is Keith Tabor, 1762 Swinning Court, Richfield. The thing I wanted to say is that what some of the other people have said at our table is that we're also in favor of less development, and kind of the map we came up with was really like none of the above, you know, more, we want to leave some of the land agricultural, and we don't want the continued development. Based on some of the surveys I've seen over the years, it looked like the town and now village was basically in favor of reducing the amount of development. So we would prefer none of the above, and that's the map we'll submit.
Thank you. Thanks. All right. Is there anybody else? Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right. I'll ask the village board and plan commission if anybody has anything that they'd like to offer to the discussion tonight. The mic is yours. Plan Commissioner Welk.
Thanks, Jim. Bob Lulk, 3663 Nyberg Court, Hubertus. I just have to point out a few things. I hear a lot of these throwing out about sewer and water, TIF districts. These are scare tactics by a few people, the community folks. This isn't going to happen out here. There is no place, there is no way that we could hook up to any sewer and water. The Metro Milwaukee District stops at Freistad Road. It stops. It's on the books. Germantown is not going to send it out this way. It would be financially infeasible to go to Jackson. It can't happen. So, and the other thing, TIF districts, well, I don't know why these scare tactics are being thrown out by these few people. A TIF district is at the choice of the community. And I'm going to tell you something. I've been living out here for about 14 years now, and I'm very proud of these people that I work with. We work hard. We had all of these maps up for display now for over a year. We asked the public to come and comment, talk, and this group of people again that's infesting our community comes out with all of these scare tactics. And I'm about tired of it. So I want you all to know we're not driving this planning. We're not trying to develop this land. It's not our land. It's somebody's land who has the right to sell it. If everybody wants to protect that land and keep it a nice field and agricultural, buy it. And then you can do what you want with it. But once we're trying to plan for the future, folks, in case this land does develop, in case, what's the proper way to go? We're not all beating the bushes looking for industry and commercial development. But as Mr. Weyer said, that's what offsets residential development in any community. And there are studies to prove that. I've read countless of them. So at any rate, if you want things the way they are, as I do, that's fine. But development on empty property will occur. Let's plan for it. Let's plan for it in a proper fashion. Let's all be smart about it. Let's work together. And let's not throw these hypothetical things out there that, well, sewer and water is going to come, a TIF district. You know, you're going to have apartments. You know, this woman had a good point. What about side-by-sides, condos? Let's put some of those up there, you know. But again, it's not our property. We're trying to plan for the development that will ultimately come. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason? It's Jason, right? All right.
Jason Enders, 3264 Prairie Hollow Drive, Richfield. I got more of a comment about what this gentleman here on the board said. I signed the sandbox rules. I'm not going to criticize anybody's thoughts here tonight. I'm going to be respectful of others and their thoughts. I'm not going to call anybody out for having a different opinion, and I ask that you guys do the same. What we're talking about here, some of us just got involved with this. Some of us just found out. Some of us just have questions. We're not trying to scrap any ideas here. We've been offered 2 plans. There might be room for discussion. There might not be, but that's what we're here to find out. I don't think anybody here was trying to slander anybody on the board, or there's nothing here to take personal from this, but if we're gonna, you know, if we have to sign these things and we're not gonna criticize each other, and we're gonna be respectful of each other's opinions, and feelings may be expressed and they're not to be dismissed or denied, I think we need to take that seriously. there's one thing, I'd like to leave Richfield alone. I came from Oak Creek. Another gentleman here was talking, I came from Oak Creek. I saw what Woodman's did and what Sonic did and what bringing all that stuff in did, and I'd like to leave Richfield the way it is, but I'm not naive to the fact that there's land out there to be sold. Another gentleman here's got land to be sold, I'm sure he's, we all know who that is, but I'm going to be respectful of his opportunity to sell his land. I don't have land to sell. I bought land out here in the middle of the country. I like it like that. Not naive to the fact that things may change. I just want to be informed. I want to have all the decisions and the information necessary so I can make an intelligent decision on what my future is going to hold. And if there's anything I can do to help the community go in the direction that they want, I'd like to do that too. So I don't want to be part of the problem, I want to be part of the solution, but I think just because some people got involved late or some people have different opinions, some people got a different direction they want to go, that's fine by me. I'm not going to sit and criticize them for that. I just want to open a healthy discussion. That's it.
Thanks, Jason. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Mary Kaddish. I live at 4021 Whispering Pass, Colgate. I feel pretty much like this other gentleman that just came in here. I just got involved in this stuff not long ago, but what I do feel like is that since you guys have all the votes going on the east of 175, that's the issue. And that's, I think, the issue for most of the people that are here. So I would like to know why it is, because I wasn't involved in that part, did not know when it happened. I understood it happened July 5th of last year, maybe? Is that correct? When you got the vote on anything on 175? Okay.
Microphone? Microphone? Prior to 18 months to the woman's point of the ordinance that was passed in July, it was being discussed in the spring of the year. We looked at it more closely, got public input in June of 12. We took additional public comment, in which we changed the ordinance to accommodate some of that public comment, and then in the month of July it was passed.
Okay, again, I'll say for people like me that are new to this and didn't know anything about it, that is like, okay, tonight we come and we have choices of 3, and Jennifer making comments on there. I'm wondering what you're going to be doing with those comments and how you're going to be looking at them, because our table is full of comments, trust me. So, Okay. Well, what I'd like to say is I'm not sure that I'm liking what's going on in Richfield right now. I'm kind of concerned about it. I'm concerned. I've been to 3 meetings now, and I'm very concerned about what's going on here.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? Okay. So now on your maps, hopefully the big 2x3 blank maps where you guys all have your comments. You guys ideally have the map, the consensus map that you've all raised your hand for that you guys reached. What consensus map you have, please write it out so that it's very clear and legible to us. And then after the conclusion of the meeting tonight, we'll take this back. We're going to be hosting a meeting at Village Hall probably sometime in November. We haven't set the date yet, but please stay tuned to our website. We'll have agendas posted at the post offices, or call Village Hall. That's, you can get a hold of Josh or I basically anytime you call, and we'll be happy to sit down and speak with anyone. Thank you guys all very much for coming tonight. Your input is invaluable and it's very much appreciated. Thank you for taking the time.
Ron, I'll ask the Planning Commission Chair to adjourn.
Planning Commission Chair, will there be a motion to adjourn?
Enjoy your.
All in favor? Aye.
And before the village board adjourns, I just want to thank all of the village residents for participating this evening. We value your comments. It was a good discussion. I know that there are folks that have varying opinions. That's a good, healthy thing to have in a community. I encourage you to come to our village meetings. I encourage you to stay informed. I encourage you to read our Richfield newsletter, get connected to our village website, and also look for our posted meeting schedules, which by law we have out there. It's unfortunate that the woman was only able to come to 3 meetings, but certainly you're all welcome to come to every one. And the more engaged that you are, the better for everybody. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Sandy, Dan, second. All those in favor? Aye. We are now adjourned. Thanks again for coming.